Michael, what? When did you join Sunday Swell, and what motivated you to join?
I joined, I think it was 78 or 79. I'd been playing squash on UCC teams, and we had visited Sunday Swell a few times. I liked, first thing, of course, is the great location. But after a while, I realised, they play squash in the kind of competitive but friendly competitive spirit that I liked. And when it was time for me to move on from UCC, Sunday Swell seemed to be the obvious destination.
So you started playing squash here then?
No, I'd been playing with UCC for several years. I'd been playing on their teams, and we had played in here in matches. So I had a good look at the club before I joined, and I liked what I saw. Location, the general atmosphere of the club. I liked the spirit in which Sunday Swell teams competed. Competitive, but an emphasis on sportsmanship. So for those reasons, I thought Sunday Swell was the place for me.
Could you share some of your early memories of the club?
Well, in my first year, there was squash was vibrant in my early years here, and one of my early memories is of the Harp Cup, which is for players below the top tier in squash. And when I joined, I fitted in there at that level. So it was very competitive, but best of all was the finals night. There was an A final and a B final, followed by one of the best parties the club ever hosted for a few years in a row. There were wonderful parties and sing-songs and that kind of thing. So they were wonderful memories. Players like Scannell and Sonny. Well, Sonny was not eligible, but there were a lot of very, very good players in the club at the time. And as I said, some were eligible, some were not eligible for the Hart Cup. It was fiercely contested, but it fell away fairly quickly with the arrival of the all-weather and the lighting. When the floodlights arrived on the scene, a lot of those players moved on to tennis, and they were not replaced by anybody else. So squash lost its momentum in the club and never really regained it, I have to say. So and as well as playing with some of the Sunday Swell teams, was great fun. Travelling to places like Killarney and perhaps around Cork, and all travelling in the same car, and sometimes the socialising afterwards was much more important than the game itself. So they were great memories going back that far.
Can you talk to us about how the facilities have changed here over the years?
Well, the clubhouse itself, the exterior remains, it looks superficially the same, but where we are, this end of the club, where the committee room is now, that was where the dressing room was once upon a time, and the ladies' dressing room was upstairs. They walked up a very narrow, steep stairs. There was a sauna up there as well, which was reserved for the ladies about twice a week. And the gentlemen went up there wrapped in their towels and hoped the ladies wouldn't burst in on them by accident. And the bar was actually backing onto the river at the time. So that was another terrific move when the bar was changed to its present position. It opened up the front of the clubhouse to the river and the river room and so on. And of course, the biggest change in infrastructure was the building of the gym and the new extension down at the other end of the club from where we are now. As I mentioned in the previous question, the all-weather courts and the lighting were big events, which, as I said, impacted badly on squash, but were wonderful for the club. And really for me personally, the most traumatic event in the history of the club was the flood in 2009, when the water from the river poured into the clubhouse, tennis courts, squash courts. The club was in a difficult situation at the time. The economy had collapsed. We were losing members almost every day. There was someone resigning membership. And we had to rely on the goodwill of a lot of our members who made contributions, and we had to rely on a lot of cost cutting, and a lot of severe measures had to be taken to make sure the club survived and was in a position to prosper when things improved.
Michael, how do you see the future of the club looking ahead?
Well, the club will have to, at some stage, in view of climate change and so on, will have to look at the possibility of indoor courts, in more indoor sports. For instance, we'll have to look at the utilisation of all our facilities, but I'm thinking in particular of, say, paddle or other sports which can be played indoors, which might not take up too much space. As regards covering of the tennis courts, that has been investigated in the past. There are problems associated with it, but it's something the club will have to look at. Now, there is a danger that people would, if they get used to playing indoor sports, they might feel during winter, well, why would I play tennis outdoors in wind and rain? And some people feel there's a chance that tennis would revert to being a summer sport again. I don't think that's going to happen, but at the same time, the club is going to have to study carefully the way sport, the demand for sport is evolving. Say, go back to the 70s, the club took a gamble and built 2 squash courts, which saved the club. The club was in dire financial straits at the time. Now, this was before my time in the club, but a lot of the members used to talk about how much the squash courts had added to the club, and that was taking a gamble at the time. The club may have to do something similar within the next 5-10 years and decide, well, are we going to offer more indoor sports to our members? And I can see that's going to cause a lot of heart searching. Some of our cherished facilities may have to be dispensed with.
Are you suggesting that squash courts could be converted
Well,
into?
it breaks my heart to say it, but it is underutilised. Tennis courts are very, very busy. The squash courts are underutilised. Looked at objectively, there's a strong case to be made for finding some other use for them. And that's all I want to say.
Michael, what advice or insights would you offer to the younger members in the club now?
I would encourage them to participate in every aspect of club life. Play tennis, squash or whatever, but also as soon as they can get involved in the social side of the club. For instance, attending the Friday night social tennis or squash or whatever. I would encourage them also to get involved in organisational activities and perhaps make their way onto committees. There's always a shortage of volunteers. It's a great way to get to know how the club actually organises itself, to learn the traditions of the club and that particular Sunday as well way of doing things. And there always is a need for volunteers. So I would encourage people to get involved in every aspect of the club.